Hello friends, I'm Spino, and I've been maining Chuck for almost 9 months now. The brutal reality is that Chuck, as misunderstood as he is simply not that great in the meta. I myself, and probably many other Chuck mains, are dreading the day when Superself decides to finally have a crack at fixing this brawler and end up making him, frankly, unrecognizable. So in this video, I'm going to present my full proposed rework for Chuck from the perspective of a Chuck main, including my suggestions for his buffies. Enjoy! So first we need to outline what we need to achieve with the Chuck rework, and I think we need to achieve two main things. First, we need to make him less of a heist one trick and make him better in the other game modes, and two, we need to keep the super unique playstyle of Chuck generally the same. So what makes Chuck so annoying in heist is the fact that he can just place 4 posts down, never touch them all game, and just spam supers all game long. So one of the best suggestions that I've heard anywhere is to change Chuck such that all his posts get removed upon death. This would be a nerf, but it would be a proportionally much bigger nerf to his heist play than his play in other game modes, and so it leaves us free to buff Chuck in other ways. This also conveniently nerfs the setup playstyle of Chuck, which I've never been really a fan of. For anyone who doesn't know, Chuck's setup playstyle means setting up 4 posts in pre-planned spots and leaving them there all game whilst trying to somehow get value. This is a pretty boring way of playing Chuck and doesn't have much skill expression in my opinion, because as a setup Chuck, you're only really as good as your setup. So nerfing this playstyle of Chuck would force people to be a bit more creative with their Chuck play. The next change I would make is to give Chuck a super every time he respawns. I think this would make Chuck a lot more consistent because it allows him to be surrounded by posts faster, making it harder to pressure him down early. This kind of thing is really noticeable if you've ever played Chuck in Brawl, where the players spawn very close to each other, and the outcome of many matchups can change depending on if Chuck has a super when he spawns or not. The next, and I think most important change, would be to increase the speed of a thrown post. Right now, the posts take so long to fly through the air, and it makes many techs feel more luck-based than anything. And the final change I would make to Chuck is to make his pit stop star power base kit. This is a no-brainer, I think, because 3 posts just doesn't cut it most of the time. When you have only 3 posts, your setups are much easier to read and it's more difficult to get any value out of them. Now let's move on to his gadgets and star powers, and let's also do the buffies while we're at it. Now his first gadget is very unassuming if you've not played a lot of Chuck. At first glance, this gadget just looks like a way of fixing your setup if you make a mistake, and its name also suggests that. But this gadget becomes far more useful when you realize that what this gadget really does is give you 2 supers at once. The core techs that make Chuck's playstyle what it is all rely on this gadget, so reworking this gadget would change Chuck entirely. So we're not going to rework it. Instead, let's think about how we could make a buffy for it. My idea is that the buffied gadget will supercharge Chuck's next super, so when the buffied gadget is used, the next super will deal more damage if it's a dash, or deal more damage and knockback if it's a thrown post. Now in contrast, the second gadget is much more useless. The only thing this second gadget does is stop you from using the first gadget. Like, it is possible to make things happen with this gadget, but the restriction of not being able to remove any post you want, and the restriction of not being able to use any of the techs with the first gadget makes this gadget just far inferior. So we're going to rework this gadget to try and match the utility of the first gadget. So here we go. Ghost Train. Chuck throws a ghost post that behaves like a normal post when thrown, but upon landing, Chuck instantly dashes to it regardless of distance or any obstacles in the way. This dash deals the same damage as a normal super, but doesn't chain to any of Chuck's regular posts and breaks after the dash is finished. When buffied, Chuck is immune to crowd control during his ghost dash. I think this would be a much better gadget for a few reasons. Currently, it's quite difficult to use posts in close range interactions if you're not running rerouting, because you can't easily get rid of the post that you leave after the interaction. But with this new gadget, it gives you a post you can use more liberally for knocking back enemies or cancelling supers. You could also use it to escape through a wall or use it for the CC immunity in some interactions. Now moving on to star powers. I already said that I would make 4 posts base kit, so we need to change something about his pit stop star power. Well, what about a 5th post? We saw briefly during the Stranger Things event what more Chuck posts looks like, and it works. You can get some mildly interesting setups, and it certainly adds a significant increase in depth to the setups you can make, an even bigger step up than going from 3 to 4 posts. For the buffy to this star power, a 6th post might work, but instead I think something like an increase in dash speed would be mildly more interesting, not unlike the Colette buffy. Now for the other star power. The decision of choosing between the two star powers is that of deciding if you want more posts or a reward/buff when you dash through someone. So following in this line of thought, I would leave the star power as it is, but the buffy could also provide an extra buff, such as healing with each super connection, which is an idea I've heard a lot, or giving a short movement speed buff or a temporary damage buff. And now for his hyper. A lot of the hypers seem to include main attack buffs, so I'd like to carry on this train of thought and give Chuck a buffed main attack when his hyper is active, with more speed and range, and when buffied, Chuck is able to use his main attack during his Hypercharge dash. So there you have it, my proposition for the Chuck rework as a Chuck main. I purposefully didn't change much to his main attack because while it is quite clunky, Chuck is all about his super, so if both his main attack and his super were OP, it would probably be overkill in my opinion. And now we have a Chuck that isn't a heist one trick, doesn't work for easy setup and super spamming, and is instead interesting and potentially meta?